we digitalize our own industry. The container carriers observed that the way they were working and the way they still worked with paper to get cargo from one place to another would not be so sustainable at all. So they decided, after long conversations, to collaborate and to standardize their industry, which is a requirement before you can digitalize.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast listeners, and welcome to episode 240. If this is your first time here, welcome to join our vibrant community. By subscribing to the Shipping Podcast on your preferred platform, you'll gain access to a wealth of industry insights and you will never miss a beat. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by the Digital Container Shipping Association, DCSA. Since its inception in 2019, DCSA has been at the forefront of shaping the digital future of container shipping, serving as the industry's collective voice and advocating for alignment and standardization. Industries like banking, telecommunications, and airlines have thrived thanks to digital transformation. Now it's time for the container shipping industry to experience the same revolution. With DCSA leading the change, the possibilities for transparency, reliability, and sustainability in global trade are immense. Currently, the DCSA membership is exclusive to ocean carriers. Impressively, 9 of the top 10 carriers in the world are already on board, representing around 70% of global container trade. Just imagine a world where the entire container business is digitalized, where shipping is more efficient, reliable, and environmentally friendly. Stay tuned and support the digital transformation of container shipping with DCSA, driving the future of global trade. Please enjoy my conversation with Chris Sunderman, the program lead for banks at the Digital Container Shipping Association, DCSA.
Every conversation matters.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, Lena, my name is Chris Sunderman. I'm based in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. I have a long-standing banking background that dates back from 1990. Been in client coverage. I've done commodity and trade finance, transaction banking with several banks in Europe. And I'm currently working as a program lead for banks at DCSA, the Digital Container Shipping Association. And my task is there to onboard the banks on a global basis.
How did you come in contact with shipping?
That is a not so long story. It's not about shipping, but it's about the adoption that is required to get the plans initiated by the 9 of the largest container carriers working. So my background is next to banking. It's also innovation and digitalization in trade finance. And it has been my purpose and my personal aim to digitalize trade finance globally by using new technologies, but also by bringing people together, parties together to enable trade finance digitally, but also to get the pains out of the supply chain. And I got in contact with Niels Nuyens last year through a webinar on LinkedIn with Niels, and where I was talking about digitalization of the trade finance ecosystem. And he was there on behalf of DCSA, and we talked about it. And during that webinar, we decided to have a next conversation. And it ended up in a contract with DCSA. So that is how I got acquainted with shipping. Long story, but I think you'll get there.
I think it's wonderful because people do not really understand the power of social or online media like that, like LinkedIn. I think it's a good one. It's a good story.
Yeah.
So tell me about Digital Container Shipping Association. What is that?
Well, Digital Container Shipping Association is an association that was founded and is being funded by 9 of the largest container carriers in the world. And those container carriers represent more than 70% of global container trade. Recently, a Taiwanese container carrier, PIL, joined us, and that makes us 10. But what we do is we digitalize our own industry. The container carriers observed that the way they were working and the way they still worked with paper to get cargo from one place to another would not be so sustainable at all. So they decided, after long conversations, to collaborate and to standardize their industry, which is a requirement before you can digitalize. And then after standardization and agreeing upon which formats we want to use for our future, for instance, bill of lading, but also the standards with regard to track and trace, then you start digitalizing together in a good collaboration with all those container carriers. And they use Digital Container Shipping Association for the work to be executed. So DCSA work together with the technology providers, which are parties that are able to bring technology to the table to enable a digitalization of documents through e-presentation tools. And we work together with the solution providers, but also very closely with the container carriers to make this happen.
What kind of technology do you use?
I can mention one word, it's API, Automatic Programmable Interface, which is an interface to connect one party to another one through a digital channel. The technology itself can be blockchain, for instance, but it could also be traditional technologies. We work with those solution providers in a collaborative way. We don't care. In fact, we don't care what kind of technology they use, as long as it works. And as long as the technology has been approved by a certain club, which is called the IGP&I Club, a club of insurers, global insurers, who in fact secure the cargo while in shipment. And they need to approve the technology that is being used for the transmission of a document of title like an eBL is.
I get excited when I hear you because, you know, I've been in the industry for a long while, so I've seen all the paperwork. I've been seeing all the paper trail. So something needs to be done. And I'm happy that you're doing that then. When did they come to realization that this was needed?
Yeah, that's in fact a good question, because it all started when our CEO, Thomas Bagge, he worked for one of these kind of container carriers, and he in the company he worked, he observed that the bill of lading which was used, even within the company he worked, there were several formats, let alone the formats that were used by the other container carriers. And he said, how can we continue to work like this? We need to change that. It's for customers, but also for ourselves and for our reporting purposes. It's not sustainable to continue like this. On top of that, it appeared that more than 65 million of those paper-based bills of lading were shipped or sent by courier from one place to another, which is not, well, in these days, this is not sustainable. So, well, I don't know whether you know it, but say trade finance in general is a very traditional business. It hasn't, when you talked about trade finance, it hasn't changed for ages, for centuries. It's always been done based on paper. And paper is, of course, paper is very much interoperable. So everybody knows what paper is. But if you want to become sustainable and you want to get rid of all those documents that are being shipped from one place to another, you know that digitalization is possible. And you know that if you do this, you can really make a statement as an industry. So if you want to change yourself, if you want to be sure that to be successful, you cannot change as one company. You need to change the full supply chain. And if you want to change the world, if you have the majority of the parties in that industry behind you, then this must be a successful movement. And only then you can achieve your goals. So Thomas understood that you can only get to your goals if you collaborate. And industries need to take that step into the near future to get this done. And that's it's more or less about keeping your eyes open. If you are aware of what's happening around you when you work on a day-to-day basis and you observe abnormalities, you think, why are we doing this the way we do it? Why are we doing this? And if you keep on being aware, you can only then change the world, and start with yourself.
I think it's both a generational change of managers in our industry. I mean, more young people who are used to working or doing everything else digitally are coming in. But also maybe, what do you think about the pandemic? Did that help?
I can tell you, I've been innovating since 2015, applying blockchain to the trade finance ecosystem. I've led a number of blockchain projects in trade finance, both in open account and in documentary trade finance. Those initiatives were more or less led by the financial industry, but we were maybe too early. We were ahead of time, and our clients were not ready for it. And I don't think the banks themselves were ready for it yet. I would have, and that was all pre-COVID. I would have hoped, and you make the remark, so I'm happy that you make that remark. I would have hoped that COVID would have been a catalyst for digitalization, but it didn't. On the contrary, we all observed at the early days of COVID that, say, physical handover of paper was not possible. And, banks started to discuss internally, but also externally, how can we cope with this? So you need to take steps to overcome, on the short term, the problems that our clients were facing. And I would have expected that banks would have said, well, now we need to make an end to this paper trail. Why don't we start executing the ideas we had pre-COVID? So like the blockchain solutions, but the priorities were different. The focus was put on KYC, compliancy, a license to operate. And those were, of course, important topics. But it stopped the digitalization process to a large extent, unfortunately. But what I've seen now is that the movement, as we are working on with DCSA, the movement is led by 9 of the largest container carriers. So it's an industry movement. A vast majority of major players in the industry are making this major step towards digitalization that will have its impact on the global trade industry, on the global market. And we're not doing this alone. We're doing this together with the ICC, with the FIATA, with SWIFT, and with BIMCO. And we are organized in the FIT Alliance. So the power and the push comes from many areas in the ecosystem. So it's unstoppable. And banks realize that this is something they need to collaborate in, because I consider them, the banks, as the lubricants in the total ecosystem. They need to support ease of transaction, ease of trade. Of course, based on certain requirements and based on proper risk management. But they need to support it, and they will only do it if a full industry is taking the lead here. They don't want lead anymore. They will follow, but on good arguments.
So it is the snowball effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's now contrary. So banks didn't continue to digitalize, but what they do, they see that the industry is moving, also based on changing legislation, and then they say, okay, this is something real. We have to be aware of what might come up next to us and up to us. We need to be aware and be ready. Maybe be ready for that. So I'm there for DCSA to create that awareness with the banks, and I push them to take action. I bang on the doors every now and then, and say you have to go this way or that way. Let me know if I can help you there. Talk to your clients, etc., etc. So that really helps. Based on the situation that's changing in the market.
I'm thinking about the rest of the shipping industry, which is not container and not containerized. That is harder, I think. I think you're doing a great job to show that it's possible. But how can they pick up that initiative that you are doing for the big ones and for so much of the global trade? How can, for instance, tanker business become more digitalized?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So the container guys, they changed their own industry. And I already mentioned in the FIATA lines we have allies like the ICC, like SWIFT, like FIATA, and like BIMCO. And BIMCO is representing the other carriers, so the bulk carriers and reefers. And I know that BIMCO is doing a tremendous job to create the awareness in their industry. So we see there it goes gradually, slowly but gradually. The awareness is getting up there, is picking up there as well. But I agree, it is a bit of different breed. In bulk trade, there's always different players. Usually, you talk about commodity trade, and they have their own character. It is a traditional industry, and they have their reasons for say not going digital. But in my view, that is the wrong decision. You will see that through digitalization, the speed of change in ownership, especially that one, which is required where cargo is being sold on numerous occasions during one shipment. Say the speed of execution is a big asset and would help them in their own day-to-day economies. So I'm pretty sure that they will pick up as well, and our colleagues at BIMCO doing a great job to help them. But it's in general, Lena, adoption is a key element of the success of what you have designed.
So how did you start this? I mean, I'm thinking about, everyone is talking about standardization. Everyone needs to deliver data on the same premises, so to say. How did you start all this? Or maybe you didn't start it, but how did it all start?
It started 5 years ago when DCSA was founded. And what you do is you bring the subject matter experts from each container carrier who have been appointed to become a subject matter expert for this specific topic. You bring them together in one room, one virtual room. So you organize calls, and well, as DCSA, you try to get the key elements. Of course, you design the moonshot. You want the big one. What do you want to achieve? But the moonshot can only be achieved when you take baby steps. And you need to start with the quick wins, for instance. Where can we find agreement? What are the easy steps to create standards? And if you get agreement on the easy steps, then the more difficult steps take more time, but at least you have achieved something. And people are positive about the way they collaborate. There's an open atmosphere. And talking about standards is not giving away your company mysteries. So you don't share details about clients or so. You only talk about the document that is shared between the shipper and the container carrier, or between the carrier and the bank. And that is information that is, of course, contains. So, but the elements in that form are the same for all parties in the transaction. So you start discussing the topic with your subject matter experts to get the best out of it.
Yeah, I understand how it starts, but I don't understand how it works down the line. I feel like this must be like eating the elephant in smaller bits.
Yeah, of course. If you design the standards, then technology will follow. So you need, of course, parties, the technology providers, to read or understand the digital data that needs to be transmitted. And the functionality of those solution providers need to be the same. The functionality, only the technology behind it may be different, but the functionality must be the same. So in any case, the standard data that has been designed as the standard needs to be transmitted from one party to the other through different technologies, but the outcome must still be the same. The data must not change. The validity of the data may not change. So it is a collaborative play between the carriers, the solution providers, and DCSA. That's how it works to get where you want to go.
So in a way, I don't know if I'm on the right track here, but in a way, yeah, you're talking to tech people in the shipping companies.
Yeah.
But you are the one holding the platform.
Yeah, that's true. Now it is a bit different because they're not always tech people, but the tech people in the sense that they know what a bill of lading is, for instance, and what content is required, and how the technology is, the data is being transmitted within that company, and how it's being treated, and what is important and what is not important. So how you do use references, the booking references, for instance, how do you use them, and what is happening with that? And can it easily be further transmitted into your own organization? What is the consequence of that? So it is a complex. I'm not a real tech person, but if you look at the complex, it's not. We are already working on this for 5 years. I would say since I'm working with DCSA since April 2023, focusing on adoption of banks. And with banks, it's almost afterburner. They were not even aware about DCSA, and so it's a long way to get where you want to go, to achieve what you want to achieve. We have conversations with the subject matter experts on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis, but you're not working next to each other to get things done. So you're always dependent on the time of the people available. And then you have to work it out. You have to talk to the solution providers, and they have to make their move as well. You're talking about legislation. What is the impact of legislation on cross-border trade? That is an important driver for government, for banks and large companies to make the move towards the standards as well. How is my trade being governed? What is the risk if something goes wrong in the technology? Those are things that need to be taken care of. So it's not just the standard of the document. It's more than that. It's much more than that.
Yeah. So you are developing the technology for the ship owners to become digitalized. Have I understood that correctly then?
Yeah.
So they are outsourcing that to you.
In fact, they use us to make that happen. Yeah.
That is so interesting and so smart, I think.
Yeah, you take it away out of the container carriers are able to execute their day-to-day business. They have huge business to run, and this is taken out of in a more or less neutral position, outside, but not at a too far distance from their own company. They have a lot of influence on which things are being done, which direction we choose. They're in there all together, and they can decide what is being done themselves. So the idea is great, and the outcome must be even greater.
So how has this been greeted by, for instance, cargo owners and freight forwarders and those kind of people?
Yeah, that's what we're working on. So I'm the program lead for the banks, and next to me we have a colleague who's looking at the beneficial cargo owners, so the shippers. And we also will have soon we will have a program lead for the freight forwarders. And their role is the same as mine, with a different target audience. So I'm looking at the banks, trying to get them aware of what's happening with us, and they need to be ready to implement a solution provider to enable their clients to receive and transmit electronic bills of lading. And my colleagues will look at the beneficial cargo owners, in fact, doing the same. They need to adopt or implement a solution provider, which enables them to transmit and execute or issue electronic bills of lading. So they are also part of the supply chain, and they need to be able to comply to that digitalisation process. And it takes a lot of energy to talk to them, to find them, to explain what we're doing, and to make them take that first step towards digitalization. And they know how much time it takes to start a new IT project, because it is an IT project. And if you explain that there is no real rush, but if you say if you don't start now, you may become in trouble when the hits the fan and all your counterparties are digital and you are not. So if you start now, you'll have the ability to learn and to get used to the digital situation. And when the volumes pick up real quick, then you're ready. And that's what we say.
Can you give me an example of a solution provider, just for people to understand what you're talking about then?
Yeah, a solution provider is a technology company that provides services regarding the digital presentation of documents. And the digital presentation of documents is already wrongly said because it's not documents, it's digital data. So the solution provider is what we call a digital channel, which connects through APIs party A to party B in the transaction flow. So the container carrier is being connected through the shipper, the beneficial cargo owner, and receives in a digital format the data representing the cargo that has been given into custody with the container carrier. So it's in fact a technical solution to safely and securely transmit data from one party to the other.
I can understand it's hard for you to explain this to people who doesn't really know what you're doing, but I find it exciting. It's interesting. And you spoke about IGP&I. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What do they do and what are their responsibilities and how do they do what they are supposed to?
I don't know all about IGP&I, but IGP&I is also the P&I club, as we call them, the Peninsula Insurance Club, is a club of insurers that insure trade on a global basis. What they do, amongst others, if a new technology arrives in the market, want to do business with us, with DCSA, as a solution provider and be part of the group of already approved solution providers, then IGP&I does do a risk assessment or a pen test or whatever. They test the technology that's being used and the validity of that solution provider in order to be sure that whatever is being transmitted through that platform has the same strength and solidity as the other solution provider. So they test the skills and the capability of that specific solution provider. Why? Because the carriers want to be sure that their cargo, the cargo that's on their ship during shipment, is being secured properly. So they require that approval from the insurers to be sure that the bill of lading is being transmitted to a, say, reliable and trustworthy platform when it changes ownership.
I'm excited to hear that the insurance industry is jumping on this train.
Yeah, they need to be sure that whatever is happening on that platform is done securely and properly according to certain benchmarks. So they need to be sure that the parties involved in the transmission of data securely covers the risks that the container carriers are running at the time.
So what is the best part of having your job?
But I'm a lucky man because my background is banking, it's trade finance, it's global, but I also have a strong tech background as a result of the fact that I've been doing innovation in trade finance for a long time already. I've been ahead of the market, so I really understand the complexity of what we do. I also see the urgency of what and the need of what we do, and I can combine my knowledge and my network with my stubbornness and my push to change the world in a good way. So not to mine standards, but to the standards that are the best for the industry, because there are many people like me, luckily, that really see trade change, but it's not I think I'm lucky one to be on the spot where I can really make that difference. So I'm really happy to do that. I speak with a lot of interesting people. I learn every day. And I like to make this happen. This is a very interesting and challenging task we're standing for. And I think if I can do this, and I hope to bring this further to the next generation as well, to whom I speak a lot. I'm trying to make the next generation ready for trade finance in general. And I'm really convinced that they can only be interested if they are able to work with a digital industry and not moving paper again like we did for 400 years. So no, I'm a lucky man. I like it. I like especially the people with I work and the cause we're doing. So I'm a happy man.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having the time to speak to me. I think you're in the right place. And just imagine the impact you can do.
Yeah, no, it's true. Thank you very much, Lena, for having me in this interview. Looking forward to the outcome.
Every conversation matters.
Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed our conversation, especially the one about the eBill of lading. Finally, we have arrived at this point where people and companies can accelerate the adoption of a standard-based electronic bill of lading across all shipping industry sectors, a universal eBL. I imagine a paper-free maritime industry. This might be the first step towards such a dream. I will include a link in the show notes to the FIT Alliance, FIT Alliance, where you can sign up and contribute to the change. Maybe we can reach our dream. Thank you for listening, and thank you to DCSA for sponsoring this episode. Until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.